Hello, my name is Jacob Joliker, and today we're going to be looking at the archival history of the Yellow River Valley in ancient China. So the time period we'll primarily be focusing on ranges from 2852 to 481 BCE. Thus, this video will serve as more of a general overview of the archival history in the Yellow River Valley, highlighting the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasty. Furthermore, we will be focusing on the archival history represented by four important literary compilations, which are the Shujing, the Zhou Xuan, the Chunqi, and the Shiji. So, before I get started, I want to thank Julia for holding this camera over my head, and I'm sorry for any mispronunciations of the Chinese names, but I will do it to the best of my ability. So, firstly, before we get into the text listed, Peter von Silvers, Charles A. Desnoyers, and George B. Stowe in their textbook Patterns of the World History, 2nd edition, state that, quote, for thousands of years the use of writing for purposes of record keeping has been of paramount importance for the Chinese. They continue by mentioning that the Chinese have been called the most historically minded people on earth. Considering our focus today through the lens of archival history, which I'm going to write on top so that we have a good idea of perspective, this will be very beneficial for us. So firstly, we're going to be looking at the Shujing, which translates to the Book of Documents. And it's a collection of orations made by rulers and important ministers all the way from mythical times to the Middle Western Zhou period. Consisting of 5 books within itself, Dr. Ulrich argued that not all documents were allegedly derived from the Shang period, but were written or at least revised during the early Zhou period. He continues by summarizing that their contents were not really speeches, but rather recordings of events. So von Silvers, Desnoyers, and Stowe state that though heavily laden with material of questionable variety, the Shujing remains a principal documentary source for information about the people, the places, and the events of the China's first 3 dynasties, the Xia, the Zhou, and the Shang. Continuing, they surmise that the text includes a number of clues which have helped illuminate archaeological evidence that coincides with the text. So though questionable, the Shujing seems to have some credibility to the actual history and archival accounts of Chinese history. So next, we're going to move into the Zhouzhan, Chunqi, and the Shiji. But since these were all probably written around the same time, or at least collected and edited around the same time, we're just going to lump them together. So first, we're going to look at I'm going to write this on top, the Zhou dynasty. We're going to look at the Zhou Xuan. So Z-H-O-U Xuan, which translates to the commentaries of Mr. Zhou. Right. Oops. Hold on one second here. My script went black. It's actually a commentary on another text, the Chunqi. And they state that this is the first sustained narrative work of Chinese history. So next we'll be looking at the Chunqi itself. Whoops. Chunqi. which translates to the spring and autumn chronicles. And this was actually the first Chinese chronological history. So the editors of Encyclopedia Britannica mentioned that though this work is a complete month-by-month account of a significant events that occurred during the reign of the 12 rulers of Lu. Finally, we're going to look at the Shiji. Oops, let's grab a different color here. The Shiji, which translates to the records of the historian. And as Dr. Ulrich Theobald says, it is a very, very famous universal history of early China and of the first official dynastic histories. So we're going to put universal histories. You want Jules?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he continues by stating that the Shiji was written as a biographic thematic style in which biographies of different type, treatises, and tables were all combined. The Shiji cover all the way from the Yellow Emperor to the Qin Dynasty. Von Silvers, Desnoyer, and Snow argue that, like the Shujing, these other Zhou records contain much of questionable values and origin. So we're going to lump these together and put a big old question mark here. Despite the uncertainty and credibility of these texts, the author argues that they suggest both an ongoing quest for social, political, and moral order, as well as institutional and intellectual experimentation on a grand scale. So we're going to put quest for ongoing social, political, moral order, as well as institutional and intellectual experimentation. Right, so now let's draw some ties together. And just for the fun of it, we're going to write the Shujing up top in order to draw some more connections. So as we can see, the Chinese live up to their reputation as the most historically minded people on Earth, with 4 extensive documentations that range almost the whole of history. Since these are generally large histories that cover all of Chinese history, the problem is that they try to include and intertwine mythology from before the literary record. So we've got mythology that's mixed in there that can't be confirmed. This makes it difficult to know what is fact and what is not. However, as von Silvers, Desnoyers, and Stowe argued, some of the writing has been backed up with archaeological evidence giving credibility to the documents, which has been backed up in all 4 documents. So in conclusion, the archival history of the Yellow River Valley is vast and incredibly expansive, as you guys can see. And this video only scratches the surface of these Chinese records and thus serves as a jumping off point for further research. So I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope that your further research into each of any of these will prove fruitful. Thank you again, Julia, for holding the camera, and have a wonderful rest of your day.